Good evening everyone and welcome along to this special broadcast here at RRC. We're doing something a little bit different today. As you well know, we do a lot of Formula One races on this channel, but as you can see, this is not Formula One, this is in fact Gran Turismo, and this is the circuit which is the home of the Le Mans 24-hour endurance race. So when you put two and two together, that does of course mean we are attempting the famous race. Obviously we are not doing this for 24 hours, this will be a 90-minute endurance race with this preceding 15-minute qualifier. So as you can see, we've got 8 cars currently racing on track, but we've got about 14 or 15 of them racing. I'm not quite sure. There you go, I think it's 14. So you can see a few still in the pit lanes there. So if you've never seen Le Mans or heard of Le Mans, which I doubt you won't have, Le Mans is one of the famous races throughout the motorsport world. It takes place here in France at this very nice circuit. So usually it takes place in and around June. Obviously we've had a little bit of trouble this year with the COVID-19, that's taken its toll on sport, but it has thankfully been rearranged for the 19th and 20th of September. So as you can see there, the first penalty of the day has been given. I'll get into that a little bit more as we go along. But as you say, yeah, it's the oldest active sports car race. We're here in Le Mans, France. I'm Sam, I'm in the commentary box today. Hope you're here for the long haul. So a little explanation I've given there. We have got 14 drivers, and you'll see we've got a few different cars on track. We've got some LMP1 cars and we've got some GT3 cars. So in traditional Le Mans race there are 4 different classes: the LMP1 and LMP2s, the GT3 and the GT2. But unfortunately we do not have the driver numbers for that, so we have instead got this. Obviously all the cars are racing on this same circuit, but it's positioned by class rather than track position. So you'll see the LMP1s very, very fast compared to the GT3s, and they will obviously get around this track in about 3 or 4 minutes time. 3 minutes or so, and the GT3 cars take about 4 minutes. So it's going to be interesting to see how the drivers handle this itself. We have had a virtual Le Mans already this year. That was done in the esports. That was one of the many things that have been switched to simulation during the season. As we can see there, another driver has joined the room, but the qualifying, we've had 5 minutes, so it's all about getting as fast as you can, much like the Formula One and many other motorsports. We see Elliot in the LMP1 car driving the Porsche there, you can see, with the lovely red livery. He'll come across the line with a 3:30 outlap, so this is his first flying lap. It's a very short qualifying session, you remember, 15 minutes long. It takes about, as I've said already, between 3 and 4 minutes depending on what car you're in to this. I actually drove around here in a Subaru earlier. I was managing around the 5-minute mark, so these cars obviously a lot more faster than those Subarus. So we see here with Elliot, went about 3 minutes 30.8, as you can see on the right hand side, in his first outlap. As we switch down, Nismo, another driver in the LMPs then. Quite nice is that all the drivers have had the chance to create their own liveries. We've got a few people working as teams in and amongst the classes, so the creative juices have been flowing. There's Ben as well in the LMP ones. You see a lovely line there for the corner, taking a little bit of a inspiration from the Toyota cars, the Gazuma Toyota racing cars. If you watched it last year, Fernando Alonso took the title in that one with his team, the Toyota 8. I was fortunate enough to be there. You'll see, I noticed a key little feature there on the side panel of the LMP1 cars. It's not just the LMP1 cars, but all cars that race in the ones, they have the 3 lights alongside the number. Now that indicates as I said in your class, whether you're first, second or third, because obviously If you're a slower car, you will get lapped quite a lot. But you can see there those 300 lights, and you can see the third just next to Ben's name tag, so that would indicate in the race, no matter where he is on track, that he is third within the class. Cyro also in the NPO. Here we go, the first of the GT3 runners. That's Gav there in that all white. I think he's gone for the Mercedes, I'm not too sure. As we get on board now, coming up towards one of the long straights here at the Le Mans circuit. So if you are a big motorsport fan, you will know that this is one of the Triple Crown. So that is the Le Mans, the IndyCar, and the Formula 1 World Championship. So here you go, sorry, the Monaco Grand Prix, Indy 500, and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. That makes up the Motorsport Triple Crown. So here we go then. This is the first of the GT3 cars with Gav. You can see some of the lovely scenery that they drive through here in the town of Le Mans. So the circuit is actually called the Circuit de la Sarthe, and it hosted the first edition of Le Mans in 1923. As we said already, it is a 24-hour race, so you can imagine the amount of miles that gets driven by the drivers combined, the amount of tyres they go through as well. You see, it's a little bit iffy as to strategies wise. A lot of things can happen. You can spin, if you hit the wall you get damage, you can change that. We've got a nice tight right-hander here for Gav, you can see there, shifting down into first. So it's a very technical track with a lot of long straights. We'll go back on board with Elliot if we can find him. And there you go, he's just gone past the finish line. So it's a 3 minutes 16.4 for Elliot. What about Ben? What can he do? He's coming round now in his LMP1 car. So I'd expect to see, he goes second there. So he's a second behind Elliot. Be interested to see there. Looks like Nismo's gone a bit wide though. Yeah, you can see there he's 14 seconds behind. So he's probably had a mistake. Qualifying obviously is a little different here in this format. As Cyro dives into the pit lane then, so he doesn't think he's got enough time. But you can see there it's just 7 minutes remaining in the session. You'll have to dive into the pits and come straight back out as we watch what a pit stop is like here at Le Mans. You can see there's only a handful of pit crew members compared to a Formula 1 car. So here we go then, you change your tyres, no front wing adjustments compared to those open wheelers. Lovely little pit stop there as he doesn't refuel then, so he's got enough fuel for another lap. So you see Gav, so already Gav's at 3 minutes 25, so the pace difference coming to fruition already. We can see a car in the back, where that's Jay opting for a blue car for his race this afternoon, or this evening I should say. So it'll be interesting to see if they come along. But as I was saying before we jumped on board with Cyro and his pit stop, the qualifying is a little bit different because these cars aren't as fast as the LMP1s, so automatically you'd assume that they'd make up the second sort of half of the grid. You can see a nice little double chicane at the end of the lap there. If you look at the track map in the top right hand corner, so Jay goes 43 seconds behind Elliot, but he is also 5 seconds ahead of Gav, so I think a mistake from Gav there. Not sure where on track. Cyro back out on his out lap then. What about at Apex? Where does he come? So he's about to start his lap. He's another that's opted for the LMP1, and you can see he's got a nice Pepsi sponsorship livery there. Cherry Max I think is the look he's gone for. What about some of the other drivers? So Civi comes across the line, he goes P7, so he's in one of the GT3 cars. Kyle a 4 minute 6. Brandon goes into P3 for the LMP1s then. That's a 3 minute 22 from him. So what else have we got? As Kyle goes even faster than in that first sector. Much like, as I was saying, it's different to Formula 1, which many of you might be used to. It's more of just a tyre change than a refuel. They don't short fuel the cars to be as quick as they can. It tends to be just one fuel load that you take round, and as we saw with Sari, you just jump in the pits. As Dragon goes 4 minutes 5 then in his first attempt of a lap. We've still got a few cars, so Jacob actually takes the first spot of the GT3 cars. It's a nice 3:59, the first sub 4 minute time we've seen from the GT3 cars. Be interesting to see if with just 4 minutes left, if they can all get round again, set another time. We can see Fishers is in the pit lane and he's getting that fresh set of tyres on. And he'll be out again for that. Ben opting for the same thing as well, jumping into the pit lane, fueling that car up again. You can see lovely little livery on there, much like the Toyotas. Obviously this is a Porsche that Ben's opted for this evening. So he comes back out for his second one. You can see the blue flags there. You can see there a penalty for Brandon. We've got strict corner cutting regulations, and if you're new to GT Sport, the penalty system is very different. You get given penalties and you have to slow down. And we'll also see a lot of this as well. You can see the cars in the GT3s pulling away from the LMP1s. Again, you can see that the positions don't change, but that will be a common occurrence. As I said, we've already seen they're lapping about 40-45 seconds quicker if you're in the LMP1s. So that's always interesting. So there's two battles going on. You want to be the first car on the track, which will probably be an LMP1 car later on, but also for a GT you want to get as high up as you can. If you can take any LMP1s, that would be great, but you want to be the best of the rest for your class. So Dragon on Speed then has gone 8th. And we can see some of the time differences. About a second between most of the GT3 drivers. Liam a bit further back. Saro not set a time yet though, so this is his first attempt. Then Tristan goes into a 4:07. That puts him P11, just a few, I think that's about 7/10 faster than Liam, but he's got 3 minutes to get round again. I don't know whether he'll have another lap time. Remember, it does take about 4 minutes for those GT3 cars. So unless you're on a lap now as a GT3, I don't think you'll get your second lap time. In Apex, 3 minutes 28. So I believe Apex is in an LMP1. So he's 11 seconds off Fishers though. So Elliott setting the other pace. He's almost a second clear of Ben, we can see there from the time as he pulls to the side. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. So we see the MFD. I'm not quite sure. Gavlar 4:04. That puts him P8. So he's gone third for GT3 class. Wonder whether Elliott's run out of fuel. I wouldn't have thought so, as he came into pit stop with a bit more tyres. Brandon's 5 seconds back. Kyle goes a little bit faster, but he still can't catch Jacob. So Jacob, with that sub 4 minute time in the GT3, setting the pace for them at the moment in time. As Civi goes a 4:01. So on the peripherals of a sub 4 minute time for Civi, but I think that will be unfortunately his last attempt. If he's on this lap now, so this will be his last attempt, trying to push up from what is effectively a net third in his class. You've got Ninja Penguino there in the blue. I think that's a McLaren. I'm not too sure off the top of my head. I haven't got a car list as such. What about Jacob then? He leads the GT3 cars at the moment. Dragon on Speed goes 4:04, so he improves slightly, but is P11, so that's 8th. No, sorry, that is 5th in the GT3 class. As Tristan goes fast in sector 2. Nismo 3:25 in his LMP1. What about Cyro? He's yet to set a time then. As he's coming through sector 2, you can see the lovely Porsche branding there. One of the major players in this Le Mans series. So just to give you a little bit more feedback into the Le Mans series, it inspired quite a lot of endurance races, obviously racing since 1923 here at the Cirque de la Sarre. As Hara comes through the last few corners, the double chicane. We flick the car right and left, then you have to right and left again. If you've ever had the luxury of being at the Le Mans circuit like I have last year, Cyro 3 minutes 26 seconds. So that puts him P5 for the LMP1s. Jacobs still leads, but Jacobs got a 2-second penalty there though, for what I can assume is track limits. Now with the penalties on, you have to slow down. Your penalty will not be added to your time unless you cross the line, but when you brake, it will not register as your penalty being served, because you're expected to brake. It goes very wide through that. There you can see there the time slowly coming down, so it keeps until you have gone Apex 3 minutes 28, still keeps him in P6. Or Elliot's given a second time penalty as well, that slows you down quite a lot. What about Brandon? 3 minutes 18 seconds. That puts him P3, as you can see, still 2 seconds off Elliot then. You can see there the time has expired for the session, so we've had 15 minutes already. Just goes to show how long this circuit is. There's not been many laps driven by the drivers. You can see 4 there for Elliot. What is his 5th lap, this one then? And then if we go down to Jacob, who's the lead GT3, he's only managed 3 laps. The fastest of that is at 3 minute 59, so the only GT3 driver to go sub 4 minutes. Ninja Penguino and Civi round out the top 3 for GT3 as it stands. Remember, we've got loads of drivers coming through. That would also, Gavlar 4 minutes 3, that puts him a little bit higher, but he's still only in 4th for this class. Who's that in the background? I think that's going to be Ninja Penguino as he comes across the line. Oh, sorry, it was Kyle 403.4. What about Ninja? His best is a 4, and it's a 401, so he's gone slower, which means he doesn't improve. Who's that? That's Civi. 3 minutes 58. Wow, what a lap from Civi, just when he needed it. 3 minutes 58.065. I think that'll put him on pole for the GT3 cars. And as it stands, Nismo's given a time penalty then, 1.5 seconds. He serves it there. You can see slowing down to serve it there. Brandon slowing down. Ben has a penalty as well. That'll cost him a second. He's not gone any faster than that. 3 minutes 17 he's set on his 2nd lap. As Elliot is also given a penalty. So Elliot's coming through the last few corners now. You can see the difference in line that gets taken by the different classes of cars. It's currently 3 minutes 16. Oh, it's a 3 minutes 16.2, so it goes 2 tenths faster. But it is invalidated. That time penalty added on takes him to a 3 minute 20, so it just leaves Ben, who goes 3 minutes 17.4. He sets the best time, but he's a second back on Elliot, and I think that is the drivers all done for this session. I don't think there's anyone else out on a flying lap. You can see Jacob going into the pit lane there, everyone else sort of just slowing down for this qualifying session. So there you have it. Elliot in the LMP1 on pole. You can see just a second clear of Ben, and the fastest driver in the GT3 was in fact Civi. And so here we go. Fishers, Stringy, Brandon, Nismo, Cyro and Apex all in those 919 hybrid Porsches. As we can see, they start with a rolling grid. This is one of the most exciting things about Le Mans, is that it is not a traditional grid slot start. They do indeed drive through. This is why pole position is key. You get to put the foot to the floor for this rolling start. Here we go then. We are underway here at Le Mans for the RRC edition of the race. Remember, it's a 90-minute endurance race, and it's not about where you start, it's about where you finish. So you can see there the LMP1 starting to pull away from the GT cars already, and we'll go on board with Elliot then for the first lap of this session. As we see what's going on with the cameras. I'm not quite sure. Here we come then onto the first long straight at Le Mans. Try and adjust the camera settings. You see the lovely long straights here at this circuit. Plenty of overtaking opportunities. So we've already had 2 minutes of this race. Sorry, we've already had a minute of this race. You can see there, and Elliott leads Ben by a second. Who, with Ben, are then a second further clear of Brandon. Gaps beginning to form at the front of this pack already. From what I know of the drivers involved today, Elliott, Ben, and Brandon are the ones to watch out for. As we'll drop down then to your pole sitter for the GT3 race, which was Civi. You can see already 20 seconds behind Elliott in the overall race, but he's got a little battle here. AJ Ruhan, Jacob looking down the inside into the second chicane off the back straight. He is obviously teammates with Tristan this afternoon. As you can see, there is Jay chasing the leading two down. What about Gav? What can he do today? Tristan there. Car's had a bit of a slow start. He's down in 12th, Dragon, and then Liam looks like he might have made a mistake. He's dropped 2 seconds back. So much to look forward to then in this hour and 27 minutes that we have got left. In normal Le Mans, I think the average laps raced is about 300 for the top LMP1 cars. Looking at maybe 250, 240 for those GT3 cars and the GT classes. So we look forward to seeing what the drivers can do here today. It's quite hard to compare it to the likes of your sort of Formula 1 and your rally cars, even the World Touring Car Championship, sorry, not rally cars, because endurance races are so different, where it's not about completing the laps first. It's about being at the front of the pack, yes, but you've got to make sure your car lasts if you get into it. So you see there, the first lap then completed a 3 minute 20. Elliott, as we can see, those lap times will only go down. As I mentioned them earlier, and it's a nice chance to take a look at this then. If you look at the side panel of Elliott's as he comes out the Dunlop curve there, you can see there's only one light on his car, whereas Ben's got two, and there is 3 for Brandon, who's got a half a second penalty then. So there signifies that they are 1, 2 and 3 in their classes. And you'll notice on Nismo's car as he comes down that he hasn't got any lights. So again, that's a lovely feature that they do in Le Mans, and it's nice to see that GT have got it transparent in the game as well. So the top 6 already pulling away in the LMP1s, as you would expect there. So the first of the GT3 cars has only just crossed the line, and they start their lap 2. Civi then 50 seconds back from the lead, but he's got a good lead over Jacob. But you can see it's 2 seconds there between him, and a 2 second gap between Penguino and Jacob as well. See lovely cars that they race around here at the circuit here in France. Definitely a spectacle you should always try and get yourself to, even if it's just once. So while it's in its early stages, this race, we'll give it a chance to have a look at the circuit itself. So as I mentioned earlier, it's called the Circuit de la Sarthe, and is based in Le Mans, hence the 24 hours of Le Mans, or for us the 90 minutes of Le Mans. So it's quite nice because it's part track built specifically for the race itself, but it also uses quite a bit of public roads they closed them off for this event in particular, and that adds to it as well. You can see that the road markings there that have quite a bit of design work for this circuit. It all adds up to what is an extraordinary race weekend. The track itself is 13.626 kilometers. Now your average F1 circuit is only about 3 kilometers long. So, sorry, it's only about 6 kilometers long, about 3 miles. So this is double the race distance. This is double the track lap distance of a traditional Formula 1 circuit, as part of the charm as well. So one of the first modifications made to this circuit to help with sort of making it more efficient for supporters and safety effectively is was the introduction of one of the most famous corners on the motorsport calendar. The Dunlop curve was added, and the Tetra Rouge. They both were added when they modified the new circuit, which then rejoins back onto the old circuit on the Mulsanne. And the Mulsanne itself has actually been modified because the straight that was longer than 2 meters was adjusted by the FIA in 1990 because they would no longer sort of sanction the circuits where the straights were longer than 2 kilometers. So they added the 2 chicanes, which you'll see as we jump on board with Fishers and Stringy. So one of these chicanes here, as Elliot gets a half a second penalty, so he needs to back off the throttle and serve that penalty. So that was one of the chicanes you saw there, because this is a 6 kilometer long straight, so 3.7 miles, which is almost half the racetrack itself. So the 2 chicanes were added in to sort of help with that. This is the second of those chicanes, much tighter one than the first. The quite nice thing about them is the first one, you go from right. So Elliot's given another penalty then, but he's pulled out a 5-second gap to Elliot at the front. Elliot has pulled a 5-second gap to Ben at the sort of 3 lap stage. Whether we can keep this up for the hour and 20 minutes, that's still a wait for us. So Brandon looking to chase down Elliot and Ben. Oh, his back end kicks out a little bit there with understeer. You can see the lap times already a second faster for Brandon there. As we see some lovely shots of the countryside that this circuit. So the fastest time clocked actually at the circuit was down that sort of 6 kilometer straight before the introduction of the chicane. That was about 252 miles an hour in 1988, so 405 kilometers an hour. Obviously cars go faster now, but at the time, considering how long the straight was, that was in 1988. So you can see already, but about now, roughly, you're looking at speeds 205 miles an hour you can clock in a LMP1 going down that first straight. As Elliot get another penalty then, this time 0.6 of a second. So in terms of penalty systems, you've already seen that they're not quite as strict as I think, but what it does mean is that if you're down the back straight, for example, and you have a second time penalty, you have to back off the throttle to serve that penalty, and that allows the other cars to keep their full acceleration. So whereas in other games, for example, I'll use Formula 1 again, that's one of the most ones where you serve it in the pit box, or it's added to your race time at the end. Here in the endurance series, all you get is that, as I said, you have to back off the throttle, other cars can keep their acceleration, and you can actually lose a lot more in these races than you would in others. So go back now to take a look at the GT3s then. So Civi pulled out 5 seconds on Jacob, who's pulled out a further 3 seconds on Ninja Penguino. So Jacob and Civi all looking very strong at this moment in time. So as I said, you've got quite a few different corners here at Seguridad. Probably the most famous of those is, as I said, the Dunlop curve. But you've also got things like the Corvette curves and the Porsche curves. So there's quite a heavy motorsport influence on this circuit. As we're on board with Civi then. Just work out where he is on track. I think he is coming through Indianapolis now. As we can work out, there we go. So he is coming through Indianapolis and Amage now as we come up towards the Porsche and Corvette curves then. So that was our midge there. And so here you'll see the first of those chicanes. This is the Porsche curve. And then these final two are the Corvette curves as you come across the start finish line up towards the done. You can see in the background there just how much of a gap Civi has pulled in these opening 4 laps. Really looking strong in his, I want to say, there you go, Mercedes. So he's opted for the Mercedes in the GT3 class. Cars on offer looked were the Mercedes, the Porsches. You've got Aston Martin's race as well, Corvette from the Americans, of course, all within a sort of balance of power setting that we're running tonight, where despite the engines being different in real life from the game, you can make it more realistic so that they allow for an equal playing field. Some of these drivers might be more experienced at the GT game than others. But we can already see then the lead GT3 car 2 minutes and 21 seconds behind the lead LMP1 car, which remains iFishers, but iFishers got another penalty then. So as we see the first pit stop of the day then, so Ben pits for a fresh set of tyres. He's currently got about 57 laps of fuel there, you can see with that little indication there. So he pits in his Porsche. He's got the super soft tyres on now, serving A5. No tyre change then, so he's just putting more fuel in by the looks of things. So he's fueled for about 40 more laps. Drops him to P3, as you can see. So he lost about 15 or 16 seconds for the pit entry on the lap, and then you lose quite a few after. He's 17 seconds back on Brandon then. So 23 seconds for just a fuel change. As we can see, the fastest lap, 3 minutes 15.897. That was set by Elliott. I think that was his second lap then, yeah. As you can see already just how quickly it's taken them to catch up to those GT3 cars. As he goes purple in sector 1 then. So Liam at the back there, the sort of back market in the GT3 class, able to just let the LMP1 car through. You see blue flags waved. I hope they're well paid, the marshals, during the Le Mans weekend, as pretty much every other car is a lapped car. So if you take a look at the bottom left of your screen, you'll see there the tyre wear on Elliott's car. You can see your front left taking most of the force. I think that's going through the sort of chicanes coming out of Anderson, obviously Porsche and Ford curves. Corvette as well, very harsh on the left side of your car. So this is another car pulling out the way for him then. He's got 5 seconds to Brandon behind. He had about 5 seconds to Ben before Ben pit, but Brandon with that 1 second time penalty for exceeding track limits, you'd assume. when will he serve that? Remember, you have to back off the throttle a little bit. Sometimes in the braking zone it's taken, there you go, you can see already a tenth taken off that penalty when he put his brakes down. Tristan on the racing line there, as we see Ben in at third. Then he's got a 2/10 left of his penalty. He's 18 seconds behind Elliot, who is still to pit yet. Brandon as well, 12 seconds up the road, he's not pit yet. Oh, you can see there Elliot serving a little bit of his so Brandon serving a little bit of his penalty coming through the corner there as they come round the Porsche curves, and then here comes the Corvette curves. There is the entrance to the pit. It's quite a nice pit lane here. It's you sort of dive in, left and right chicane almost, as the gap remains 12 seconds to Ben behind, but Elliot's pulled away by a second that lap then, so that gap now 6.2 seconds. What about these GT3s? We'll jump on board with them. You can see a lot closer than obviously the LMP1 cars, as Ninja has made a move then. So we've been talking a lot about the LMP1s, we've not been talking about GT3s. So Jay has got past Jacob, he's pulled about 6/10 on him then. The gap to Sibby though is 10 seconds. Sibby absolutely flying for the GT3s in his car. We've had almost 20 minutes of this race, so 5 laps completed for the LMP1s, about 4 completed for those GT3s. As we're coming down the second part of the Romandier with Civi, you can see in the background there one of the LMP1 cars. I think that is Stringy, I think that's Ben. Yeah, as he comes through the first chicane then. Nismo 30 seconds off Ben. Everyone's very wide at the Porsche curves, given a 5/10 penalty. You can see just how wide he went there, punished for that line. When will he serve that penalty, I wonder, as he comes into the first chicane then off the Humaniers. To the second part of the straight now then. Nismo he's got a decent gap to both Apex behind and Cyro, but he's got a half a minute to Ben in front of him, so Ben really starting to pull away now from the rest of the LMP1s. Elliot's still flying at the front of this pack and leader of the race itself. You can see there 7.6 seconds, so since we were last on board with him he's pulled out a further 2 seconds now. Looks like Brandon's struggling a little bit, whether he served a penalty. You can see that gap's increasing every time. It looks like he served a penalty. Fishers has been able to pull away from him. He's given another 9/10 penalty. You can see just how much. Oh, he runs very wide. There wouldn't be surprised to see another penalty given. Remember, they are on strict corner cutting. There you go there, another second added to his time as he pits then. So the second pit stop for an LMP1 car is Brandon. He's got 35. So what about Stringy? What can he do as he comes through the final chicane now? A 3:21 there from Ben. He's second up off the bidder, so he's about to lap the first of the. What about Brandon? What's he done? He's gone for the soft tyres now. Then he drops to 30 seconds behind Elliott. Still got to serve that 1.7 second penalty, remember. Best place is probably on the straights to come down through the Dunlop curve now. Lovely right hander into the Dunlop chicane. Comes up now onto the Tetra Rouge, which is the very nice tight left-hander that you've just seen him go through. This is the Mulsanne straight then. Got a different name in French to English. It's 3 seconds penalties now for Brandon, so he's really seems to be struggling with the track limits at times. Coming through the 10, 11, 12, 2.9 second penalty there, you can see. Really struggling with those track limits. Elliott given a 1.4 second penalty for skipping there as he comes round turn 17 then. So 33 turns at this circuit then. Quite possibly my favourite would have to be the Porsche curves. I know Dunlop is one of the most famous on the calendar, but with the way the cars, especially the LMP1 and LMP2s, they go through the Porsche curves at such speed with the downforce levels keeping them stuck to the asphalt. It just makes for pleasant viewing, and if you're a big motorsport fan like myself, then there's nothing really more you want to see. That's we see then 1.2 seconds for Elliott. He's got a 23 second gap between him and Ben. Brandon a further 10 seconds behind String, but he's got, you can see there, that lingering 2.7 second penalty. What is a 2.2 second penalty will probably be a lot more when he slows down, because that'll enable Ben to pull ahead, and Nismo gap, yes, is 30 seconds. But it'll close up ever so slightly. As we've got just over an hour and 5 minutes left in this race lane. We've had 7 laps. And the lead car pits then. So Elliott comes into the pit lane for a change of tyres and some more fuel. He was on the super softs. You can see there he had 20 laps of fuel left, but opting to change then. Is he going to fuel another 100 laps? Is he going to under fuel slightly? I reckon. Yeah, you can see there 94 laps, so he's only gone for about 70 odd laps, not the full tank then. He's just 2 seconds behind Ben then, so that pit stop, staying out later, has worked for Elliott. It's put him in a real strong position. Anything can happen though, and they're probably going to need to stop once, maybe twice more for all the drivers. As you see, Ben gets another 5/10 penalty for running wide. Elliott gets a second penalty though, so depending on when they choose to do it, you can see there the little P's on the right hand side of the times on is when they were given a penalty during the lap time. So we see, what about Brandon? What can he do? He's still got a 2.3 second penalty, but he's 8 seconds off the lead 2 cars. You can see there just the other side of the chicane. He's chasing them down big time. So they're lapping the first sector in about the 1 minute mark. I say sector 1, it's quite hard to know where the sector is off the top of my head, but you can see there that he's keeping pace with what they've usually done. So Civi there, you can see, still leads the GT3 cars. He's got a 16 second gap to Ninja Penguino. So Jacob has come into the pits then by the looks of things. Well, he's dropped down to 4th in the GT3 class. He runs very wide on the. I wouldn't be surprised if that was another penalty. Looks like he's got away with that one then. So he's over the back of Gav now. 6/10 of Gav. Is he going to make a move into this first chicane? I don't think he's going to be close enough. You see him holding the throttle there at the top of 6th gear. Reaching speeds of 180 miles an hour down that first part of the Mulsanne. As they come out now, it's back on the power, shifting up through the gears. Oh, you see Gav goes very, very tight on the exit, and that's allowed Jacob to go round the outside, and he makes the move into what is 9th place on track, but 3rd place in the GT3. Gav making a move down the outside of the slipstream, very effective here, especially down this Mulsanne straight. And Gav will have the inside line, but he's just not close enough, and Jacob maintains the position. You can see there he's got 13 seconds to the car ahead of him. Civi 17 seconds clear now, yet to pit though. You can see that tank is almost running on empty. The front tyres as well taking quite a bit of a brunt from this Mercedes car. Shifting into 2nd for that corner then. What about Ninja? He's got a bit more fuel on board, so I'd imagine that when Civi pits, Jay may stay out for a few more laps. You can see he's averaging about 4 minutes 1 second on his lap times. Civi with quite a few laps under the 4-minute mark, so he's about a second or so quicker than his nearest competitor. Jacob as well, we've got 1 lap sub 4 minutes. You see there, he'll get the blue flags from Apex just behind them in the LMP1s. Jacob pulls very, very wide though. He's gone wide. That's allowed Gav and Apex to get through. Apex obviously lapping Jacob, but Gavlar taking the position back. And it's quite a nice little battle between these two, and I wonder whether Jacob got a penalty for that. He's not served one just yet. So he's lucky to get away with a penalty, but he's got to close that gap now. It was 6/10 he had the lead over Gav, but it's now 3.2 seconds he's behind. What about Tristan? A little race on his own at the moment, 27 seconds behind his teammate, and 5 seconds clear of Dragon on speed. You can see there the German amongst the Brits. Teammates with Civi then in that Mercedes car. You can see there Civi pit, so he was running low on fuel. I did mention that, and he has gone into the pit lane. Will he fuel heavy or light? We shall see. It was on the super softs as well. Quite a lot of fuel then for him. He goes on the softs and fuels for quite a while, and here we go then, both Jacob and Gav pit. So Jacob must not have pitted, he must have just made a mistake. Dropped severely down the pack. He's got a 1/10 of a second penalty then. What about Gav? Where do they come out? Who's going to fuel for longer? Who's going to come out front? Remember, it's not like every other race. When you pit and you fuel up, you can go longer or shorter. Who's going to be the first one out of the gate? Looks like it's Gav then, so Gav fuels to the end. Where's Jacob? We've got yellow flags from somewhere. Tristan pits then, his teammate just before him. Fuel goes into his car. Liam's given a half a second. But everyone's very, very wide. What happened there, Liam? Frontless racer. Elliot's got past Stringy then. We anticipated that would happen. Elliot pit for the fresher tyres. You see Ben's front tyres there really struggling. About half their tyre wear on the front right, the one to look for in particular. Front left, sorry. As we go to an hour left of this race, we've had half an hour. Elliot leads Ben by 6 seconds. Further 20 seconds back is Brandon then in the LMP1s. We have got Nismo, Apex and Cyro all still there as well. Cyro cuts a lot of that right hand chicane there. You can see he's given us a second time penalty for that, and I'm not surprised. There is Gavlar, then Jacob just behind him, so they were quite close on the pit entry, but you can see just how much the pits can make for a race like this. That gap now 10 seconds. Civi still at the front of the chasing pack for the GT3, so him pitting allowed Ninja to take the lead in his class. He's got an 8-second advantage over Civi, as it looks like a driver's out. Yeah, so we have lost a driver. Liam has crashed or retired, I'm not too sure, but we are down to just 13 runners as Elliot gets around Tristan. Then Nismo comes into the pits for his first stop. So Nismo back out then in fourth place. Oh, as Nismo spins it! He spins it at the first chicane there, so we have a yellow flag for what is the first time, I believe. Maybe there was one for Liam earlier, but you can see Nismo's back end gave way there and his car went round. So I said, what would Jay do? Jay comes into the pits there and he's done it a lap or two after Civi, and he fuels to the end then, or fuels to the full tank, I should say. Quite a long way to go in this race. Yeah, 55 minutes still to race. Oh, there's a big contact there between Jay and Cyro. That will not do them any good. Remember, they're not racing each other as such. So if we see the gaps there, Civi's got 24 seconds. So Ben's in again then. Ben comes in for his, what I assume is his second stop of the race. As we see, just a quick check on the timings then. So like we expected, the Porsches all taking the front of this race. Fisher's leads Stringy. Brandon, you can see there, just gone past Ben. He is in the pit lane, as you can see behind the graphics. So this is half an hour into the race. You see at the bottom left there, 35 minutes gone. We got Nismo, Apex and Cyro around up there. So Civi leads the GT3s. We can see there's quite a few different car choices. We've got the AMG, the preferred choice of 4 drivers. We've got a Supra there as well, the Z4 GT3 being run as well by a couple of cars. So Jay and Kyle opting for that. As we look at the GT3, so the best sector times amongst the GT3 runners, so Tristan, I believe, has got the fastest first sector there for him. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but we can see already Elliot pulling away. He's got a 24-second gap to Brandon. Ben 7 seconds behind Brandon, but he's obviously pit as well. Nismo and Apex sort of been dropped, as has Cyro. You can see just in the difference of the lap times, a 3:24 for Nismo compared to a 3:16 for Ben. As we have a look then, the track map, you can see there quite a lot of the cars coming around then. So confirmation then on the left hand side that Liam has left the session. Apex into the pit. So he had 6 laps of fuel left. He's pitted off the medium tyres. What tyres has he gone for? We shall see. Probably looking at the softs for this second stint. Quite a lot of fuel going aboard that Porsche car. There you go. Super soft, in fact, is the choice for Apex. We can see Elliott then 25 seconds now, that gap. As we see a yellow flag there ahead of Stringy, so one of the GT3 cars going quite wide. Civi leads Jay by 26 seconds, 6 minutes 30 off the lead LMP1 car. But the LMP1 cars have done about 10 laps. You can see the difference there. So 12 laps in fact for Elliott, or he's on lap 12 I should say. So done about a lap more than the GT. Oh, it's almost a bit of contact there between Gav and Ben. Coming through the Corvette curves now. We go. He's got 1.6 second penalty. They'll have to serve soon. Getting that gap down gradually to Brand ahead. He's coming down by a few tenths every corner. We can see Brand is coming up through the Dunlop curve at the moment. As we come down now into the first sector. That gap now just 5.7 seconds. Brand has gone fastest in that first sector. When's he going to choose to slow down that car? Remember, he needs to serve it under braking. It's not a traditional penalty system that they run here in endurance. You have to lift the throttle for that penalty to be served. So he's got Ben then has a minute and 47 to Nismo in the next LMP3. So barring anything going wrong as we approach the halfway stage of this thing, remember an hour and a half they'll be racing for, so 50 minutes almost upon us. That means we've been racing for just under 40 minutes now. Elliott leads from pole, remember. He took pole position in that Porsche LMP1 car, and then Civi was the fastest of the GT3 cars. He also still leads. He's got a half a second gap, half a minute gap to Ninja Penguino. Got that 2-second penalty. Still needs to serve. This is the nice thing about the endurance races for drivers, that if you can get the gaps, the penalties don't mean as much. If you're within a few seconds, the slipstream on the Longmoor Sand Straight could be killer. Slipstreams are quite strong with these cars. But with that half a minute gap that he's got, if he slows down, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. It maybe lose about 3 or 4 seconds, but he'll still have a decent pit stop. So, he runs very wide there low, trying to let the leader through. This gap was just under 6/10 at one stage, with Gav chasing Jacob, but Jacob is now a full 10-ish seconds back, 8.9 you can see there on the left hand side, but he's got a 20-second gap to Kyle. His teammate Tristan is a further 3 seconds back on Kyle. just see him in the front of the picture there as he came round that corner. Lovely camera angle there as they come down the straight there, back into the Mulsanne. Dragon again, his teammate leads the GT3s, he's down in 13th place. The last runner at the moment, remember we have lost one car in this session. Liam seemed to struggle from the off a little bit really, and made the decision to retire from the race. Quite a long endurance race, remember, so if things are not going your way, it's quite hard to get them back in the longer races. We've not really had any crashes though, which has been a pleasant surprise. Not that these drivers are bad, but even in the Le Mans series in real life, you do get a few mistakes that creep up here or there, drivers running wide. I think there's possibly been a few mistakes that have cost drivers positions, but it's more just been a case of, as Jacob's got that gap down now. Oh wow, Jacob runs really wide there though. I was just saying about mistakes, and you can see Jacob ran really wide there, and he's lost 5 seconds to Gav ahead of him. He had got that gap down to 3 seconds, it's now back up to 8. As we're checking with the lead two, so Ninja's 24 seconds back, but he's got a 23-second advantage over third place. So unless anything majorly goes wrong, I can't see there being too many changes to the podium positions in GT3. Same could be said as well for the LMP1s, as Ben goes fastest still in sector 1. He's gone purple then. He's chasing down Brandon after he did pit, remember, so that's why he's dropped down to third place. Goes purple again in sector 2 then. The fastest lap currently at 3:15, set by Elliot on lap 2. He's about to start lap 14 then, so really strong race from Elliot so far. There you go, 3:16.1. So he's averaging on the right hand side, as you can see. He had a 3:47, and that was when he dropped into the pit lane. Brian's given another penalty, then this time it's 2.4 seconds, so that could really cost him. He's only got 2.8 seconds to think about. So he pits then, so Brandon comes into the pit lane. You can hear that lovely crack of the engine. Start down to Brandon really running his engine to almost empty. You can see there in the bottom left, it's barely a red mark next to the E. That indicates how much fuel. I'd assume he'll full quite a heavy load again. Here we go then. What sort of fuel level are we looking at? I'm reckon it's going to be 100. 33 seconds back on the leader when he pit, but that'll all obviously change when he comes out. So he goes, he only goes up to 85, so opting for he runs very wide on the pit exit there though. It takes a lot of that first chicane. Coming through, you can see there the 3 lights on the side of his car indicating that he is third in his class. What about Nismo as he comes round the lovely left section? As we have officially reached the halfway stage in this race then, just under 45 minutes to go. Elliot leads Ben and Brandon in LMP1. Civi leads Ninja and Gav in the GT3s. Jacob looking to make up for that mistake and went wide at the first corner, you saw him go into the gravel. You can see in the bottom left there, 45 minutes and 44 seconds we have been racing for. Quite a lot of gaps on track. You can see the lead 3 then. Ben setting the fastest lap of his race on that previous. I remember he did pit a few laps earlier. Got some fresh fuel, fresh tyres. Being able to push that, but he still trails Elliott by 33 seconds. So Elliott's come into the pits then. The overall race leader after lap 14 comes in. How much more fuel does he put on board? Here we go then, as Ben takes the lead of the race. So he comes across the pit straight. And no, he hasn't, so he's not got ahead of Elliott then. Elliott has come back out and he's still 4 seconds clear of Ben. And he should be able to just pull away now. So the strategy for Fisher's coming strong there. As we see Apex slowing down to get past the cars. I believe that's Tristan. About Cyro. Cyro's about to get lapped then in his car. See blue flags waving then. Striking half and half livery for Cyro. Ben runs very wide on the exit of that chicane. Half a second penalty though for Ben for that wide line. Civi leads by half a minute then. As he comes through the pit straight now, he sets his fastest time then at 3:59.105. Oh. Okay. Not quite sure what happened there.